We have a variety of updates from around NHL training camps, including some players placed on waivers. We have some other players that have been cut and sent to the minors. We have a couple of signings, as well as a few NHL trade rumors to discuss as well. We'll get into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of small little updates from around the NHL. All kinds of things happening within NHL training camps. All kinds of NHL roster cuts being made. Some players requiring waivers. Others being sent to the minors. So let's dive right in here and have a quick look at which players are not going to be starting the year off here in the NHL. Now on waivers today, we have a couple of goaltenders, including Andrew Hammond of the Buffalo Sabres, as well as JF Berube of the Philadelphia Flyers. No big surprises there. I think when both those guys were signed with those teams, they were expected to mostly likely play in the American Hockey League. I mean, Andrew Hammond, ever since he had his magical Hamburglar run with the Senators, really hasn't been quite the same goaltender. He's bounced around from organization to organization on one-year deals going through the waiver wire pretty much every year to get down to the AHL. I really expect him to be a third-string goaltender who can come up and play if Hutton or Ullmark ends up injured. At least he's got some experience, and you just never know. He's a decent guy to have around, but he's certainly not going to be fighting for one of the top two spots at the NHL level. So no big surprises there. The other goaltenders going through the waiver wire the last couple days have all cleared, including guys like Oscar Dansk and Garrett Sparks of the Vegas Golden Knights. I really thought maybe somebody might grab one of those guys, but they've both cleared and will start the year down with the American Hockey League affiliate for Vegas as well. Some other notable names with previous NHL experience going on the waiver wire today include Bo Bennett of the Arizona Coyotes, as well as Derek Pouliot of the St. Louis Blues, formerly the Vancouver Canucks, and before that with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Of course, Derek Pouliot was a high first-round draft pick of the Penguins a number of years ago and has never really panned out. Had a chance to start over in Vancouver, didn't really make the most of it, ended up signing in St. Louis last year. It's really not a huge surprise that he's ended up on waivers. The blue line for the Blues was pretty well set before he ever signed a contract. So he must have known going into that he more than likely would have a spot in the American Hockey League and at best be a call-up option should they run into so many injury issues or anything like that. But those are your waiver wire players here for today. Some other notable prospects being cut and sent down to the minors by their NHL rosters include the Tampa Bay Lightning sending down prospects Taylor Raddysh and Boris Katchouk. I really thought Raddysh might stand a chance to stick around this year. He had a pretty solid year in the AHL last year, but the Lightning are so deep at the forward group that it's making it hard for these guys to really crack into that roster and get a permanent spot here. So it'll only a matter of time though before they may end up having to move some more prospects because they're just so deep at that position that it might be a while before they get a regular spot with other younger guys like Anthony Cirelli, for example, moving up and taking one of those spots here in the last year or two. But Taylor Raddysh and Boris Katchouk will be starting the year again for Tampa down in the AHL. No big surprise as well, but the Montreal Canadiens have sent goaltender Caden Primo down to their American Hockey League affiliate as well. He did look pretty decent during the preseason. I was impressed, and as I've mentioned on numerous times, he very well could turn out to be a 7th-round draft steal for the Habs, but for right now, he needs some more seasoning in the AHL while Carey Price and Keith Kincaid man the fort at the NHL level. The Washington Capitals have demoted in 2019 draft selection Brett Leeson, who was drafted a little bit late. He was a little bit of a late bloomer in junior, had a good showing last year with Team Canada, got picked up by the Caps in the 2019 NHL draft as a bit of a later pick. He certainly has a lot of potential. No big surprise he's going to be starting his pro career down in the American Hockey League. Now, the Ottawa Senators have also made a rash of cuts as well, and there are a few little minor surprises there as well, including defenseman Max Lajoie, who I thought really had a shot at making this roster, especially with other defensemen Christian Merlanen out 4 to 6 months with a torn labrum. I thought that might open the door for Lajoie to kind of grab a more regular spot, but I guess the Sens feel he still needs to spend more time in the AHL, and they've also sent down a bunch of forwards, including Max Verino, who they signed as a college free agent last year, and actually looked pretty decent at times, but I guess the consistency is the issue there. They also sent down Alex Formanton and Josh Norris. Of course, there's only so many spots. They have a lot of guys, the veteran guys, still under contract that are taking up spots for right now. They still have some other guys like Logan Brown, Drake Batherson as well, fighting for spots, trying to stay with the NHL roster. But they do have a lot of those young guys going down to the AHL. I fully suspect the Belleville Senators to have a pretty strong team this year. The Los Angeles Kings have returned a couple of their young prospects back to their junior teams as well. Samuel Fagibel has been loaned back to his team over in Europe, and Akil Thomas will be returning to the OHL to return to his junior club for the season as well. The Chicago Blackhawks have also made some cuts and demoted some of their prospects, including Dylan Sakura, who I thought really might have a shot to make this roster this year, but he again got cut and will be going down to the AHL, along with defenseman Nikolai Baudin, along with forwards Mackenzie Entwistle and Philip Kurashev, who we all discussed in the Chicago Blackhawks top prospect video we did earlier this offseason. The Hawks do have some pretty solid prospects, and they're all going to go down and get some seasoning and continue to develop at their American Hockey League affiliate. Now, as I mentioned, we also have a few signings to discuss today. The Pittsburgh Penguins announced a couple of entry-level contract deals, one for 2019 first-round selection Samuel Poulin. Of course, he's a second-generation NHL player. His father, Patrick Poulin, played in the NHL for some time. He's currently going to be part of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, playing with Sherbrooke there. Had a pretty solid year last year during his draft season. I expect him to continue to develop and really take things up another notch for the coming season, but he gets signed for his entry-level contract. And Nathan Legare as well, also from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League with Baie-Comeau, also got signed to his entry-level contract. He's certainly another interesting prospect for the Penguins as well, so they get both of them signed. Certainly two future prospects who I do think have a decent shot at playing for the Penguins' main roster sometime on a regular basis in the next couple of years. And the Vegas Golden Knights have also signed an undrafted free agent, Braden Paschal, who's a right-shot defenseman from the Western Hockey League, who played as junior with the Prince Albert Raiders. Had a pretty solid year last year, putting up over 50 points in 65 games, so overall he had a pretty solid year, but then again, during that final season, that's when you usually see a lot of these junior players really excel and put up some bigger numbers, but really by that point they should be doing that because they've been in junior for a few years' time, playing often against a lot of younger players. So at this point, he'll certainly get a chance to play some pro hockey with the Vegas organization, see where things go, but a decent prospect pickup there by Vegas. Now, as I mentioned, we have a couple other quick NHL rumors to discuss today as well. One of them being that the Boston Bruins and Torrey Krug will hopefully get extension talks underway. Otherwise, it is possible, I guess, that Torrey Krug could end up being traded. Although at this point, I'd say that's pretty unlikely. Torrey Krug's made it pretty clear and very well known publicly that he wants to stay in Boston, and he's really hopeful and optimistic that the Bruins and his camp can get contract extension talks underway now that the Bruins have much of their other offseason business taken care of. Joe Haggerty, reporting for NBC Sports, indicated that the main reason why Torrey Krug contract extension talks never really got underway over the offseason was Don Sweeney was really busy trying to look after their RFAs, including Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo. And now that that's all done, hopefully they can go into the season and begin some talks. Torrey Krug has made it known that he would be willing to take a little bit of what they call a hometown discount, but obviously within reason, of course. Many believe that the new Jared Spurgeon big-time extension he signed with the Minnesota Wild will be used as a comparable and could be something similar that Torrey Krug seeks from the Boston Bruins. Like I said, if they do have a hard time coming to terms on a new contract, I guess it is remotely possible we could see him, maybe mentioned in additional trade rumors as the season goes on. But if Boston has a solid year like many people expect, I would be highly doubtful that Torrey Krug would end up being traded. But I do think that it is quite possible, depending on the numbers, that they can hopefully work out an extension and keep him in the fold longer term. Now, the Edmonton Oilers as well are apparently still looking for a number 3 center. Even though they signed unrestricted free agent Riley Sheahan, they don't seem to be convinced at this point that he's going to be able to grab that number 3 center role. They might have to use him there in the short term if nothing else really turns up, but they feel he's likely better suited for a 4th-line center role and might look to upgrade somebody else who has a little bit more offensive upside to play that number 3 center role. I mean, Sheahan can be a useful forward, can play the PKs, good on faceoffs, and all that on the defensive side of the game, but to have somebody in that number 3 hole that could play a little bit more offensively, a little bit more creatively would certainly be a nice boost for the Oilers. Apparently they have been scouting the Ottawa Senators a bit throughout this preseason, and the Senators do have a couple of center icemen, including Chris Tierney and Jean-Gabriel Pageau, who are pending unrestricted free agents that very well could end up being trade bait later throughout the year. Of course, the Senators are not expected to likely compete for a playoff spot. They do have a lot of young talent, as I mentioned earlier in this video. I do expect them to make some steps forward, but not anywhere near being a playoff team as of yet, and we very well might see a few more veterans like a Pageau or a Tierney get moved out later in the season, and one of those guys certainly would make sense to kind of fit the need for what the Oilers are looking for, but I guess we will see. I would imagine, though, that the Oilers would probably want to make that move sooner than later so that they have more of an opportunity to make improvements and try to get themselves into a playoff position. I don't see the Oilers really looking to add at the deadline unless the season goes extremely well. And at this point, I'm not overly optimistic that they're going to be a playoff team as of yet. With what they have right now for their roster, they very well could be better than last year, but they still have a ways to go to convince me that they're going to be a playoff team. So I don't see them adding later in the year. If they're going to make a move, I think it'd be sooner than later to try to boost their chances to have a stronger season. So let us all your latest news and rumors from around the NHL for today. Of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. So let me know what you think and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching and I will catch you next time.